Welcome to another episode of This Too Shall Suck podcast, where we talk about the real of grief, the whole grief, and nothing but the grief. Welcome back, welcome back, welcome back. Do y'all know where that's from? I realize I always do that, but I don't really know if y'all know where that's from. It's from a song. It's from Mace. Look it up. Welcome back, my loves. I am your host, Loryn Denise. I'm so happy to have you back. If you are joining me again, welcome back. If this is your first time here, welcome. Thank you so much for listening. If you haven't already listened to the rest of season 2 and all of season 1, it is available. This is my last episode of season 2, but thank you so much for joining me here on this journey. On today's episode, we're going to be diving into friendship breakups. I think it's important to acknowledge that breakups are not just about romantic relationships. They are friendship breakups, anything in the family, any of those can cause a grief in your life. And so I wanted to make sure that I highlighted it and gave it the space and time that it needed to talk about it. And so on this particular episode, I'm doing something a little different. I always bring someone on and kind of, interview style them, even though it's really conversational. But I really wanted to have like a candid conversation on this last episode of the season, because I thought it was just super dope. And I thought it was important to, again, just be open, honest, and vulnerable. You guys know that's what this whole entire platform is about. And so I wanted to bring on someone who I actually had a real life falling out with, to the fact that we didn't talk for a year. And recently, well, I'll say within the last year, we were able to speak again. Actually, yeah, within the past few months, we were just able to reconcile. And so I'm bringing on one of my best friends, Tim, and we're going to talk about our situation and, how we fell out and how that kind of caused the grief in our life. Because again, I think people assume, well, let me not say that everyone assumes, but people don't put enough weight on what it means to have a friendship breakup as opposed to a romantic relationship breakup. And that you have to heal from that. You do have to heal from losing a friend, and whether that's healing with them, if you guys decide to reconcile, or just healing without them because that relationship no longer serves purpose in your life. And I want to be clear that either one is okay. Because I actually, during the time that Tim and I had fallen out, there was another situation that I had fallen out with a friend of mine, ex-friend at this point, who we have been friends for a very, very long time, 10 plus, actually 15 plus years. And we just had a falling out. And one of my girlfriends said, I think that you and Tim can reconcile, but I think this other friendship, I don't see it reconciling because it's much deeper than just the situation of what happened. And I agree with her. And I think that sometimes you just outgrow people and you are in these relationships that you have created. And now you're like, I don't want to be in that type of relationship anymore. And if that person, is used to that type of relationship and they don't want to move forward into a different one, because this is the relationship that you guys have always had, then it's time for you to move forward. And that particular friendship no longer serves purpose in my life. But again, you can also have on the other spectrum of a Tim and I, who were able to heal and move forward from it. And we both decided you know what, this is not something that we want. We don't not want to be friends. I think that the reason that we fell out was definitely something petty that escalated and snowballed into something more than what it was. And we were able to, after a year, essentially, it's process it and move forward. But I did want to just give some I know I typically do this in the middle, but I just wanted to do this before because I'm going to get into the conversation with Tim and I. And it really is just a candid conversation between the both of us. And it's funny, you'll see that we had different opinions on what happened and we had different views of what happened. And that is why we fell out, because we just looked at things completely different. We didn't know what the other person was thinking. We didn't talk about it. I was in my feelings. He was in his feelings, and we just were not able to move forward from it at that time. But again, like we were now able at this point to move forward and continue in this beautiful friendship that we have. But I just wanted to give, if you do decide that you have a friendship breakup and you realize that this relationship no longer serves purpose in your life, I just wanted to give some tips on how you can heal from that type of situation. Because again, losing a friendship can cause a really like lonely feeling. It can cause like a lot of obviously the feelings of grief, anger, confusion, all of that happening. And so I just wanted to give you some tips on how to move on from that, if that is your particular situation that you're in, or situation that you may be in the future. So the first thing is, if you decide that you do not want to reconcile with this particular friend, and you are feeling some type of way, I would say validate your feelings. Definitely, when you break up with a friend, there's a lot of different emotions going on in your head, depending on how it ended, right? It could have ended smooth, or y'all could just not talk anymore and y'all could have just outgrown each other, and that's totally fine. But if, it was kind of a situation like with Tim and I, there was a situation, just make sure you validate your feelings. Like, you know what? I feel really sad that I'm not friends with this person anymore. I'm really pissed off that we can't be friends because this person doesn't see my, feelings, or I'm not being heard, or, I'm just really confused as to why we're not friends anymore. Validate those feelings. However you're feeling, validate them to say, you know what? Like, I need to process how I'm feeling. And right now I'm angry, and that's okay. And tomorrow I might be sad, and that's okay. I'm really confused as to why we're not friends anymore, and that's okay too. Validate those feelings within yourself, because at the end of the day, your feelings matter in the situation, no matter whether the other person validates them or not. Your feelings do matter in that situation. And the second thing is, don't play the blame game. Like, don't be like, you know what, like, dang, like, if I didn't say that, then we wouldn't be friends. Or if they didn't say that, we wouldn't be friends. Listen, like, at the end of the day, whatever happened, why y'all are not friends anymore, it just happened. And there doesn't need to be any blame on anyone's part. Sometimes friendships just don't, again, you outgrow them, or you become two different people, or you see things that maybe you just didn't see in the past. Like, whatever the situation is, sometimes we just really don't know why. Sometimes you know why, and then sometimes you don't know why. But either way, there's no reason to play the blame game of like, okay, well, it was their fault, or maybe it was both of our faults. Like, listen, like, things happen, and I'm going to move forward in my life, and I'm going to process how I'm feeling and process this grief. And by me doing that is not playing the blame game, because then you're never going to be able to process it, because you're going to be like mad at them forever, or you're going to be mad at yourself forever. You're going to be sad forever. No, like, in order for you to process grief in the healthy way, you have to be able to not play the blame game and just say, you know what? Let me move forward from this. Let me process my feelings. And that's how I'm going to get through this. And just with any type of grief, take that time for yourself. And if that's like, say it to your other friends, like, hey, I need a minute, like, this really affected me, or to, go and get some spa day, or, working out, or really focusing on yourself and saying, hey, my goal is to lose 20 pounds by this time, or to pay off some debt, or whatever it is. Like, focus on yourself at that time, because you may have put a lot of energy, and most people who are good friends typically do like put a lot of energy into their friends. I would say, I know for me, I do put a lot of energy to my friends, and it's not necessarily like we talk every day and we do this and I do that, but like, if someone's my friend, like I show up, like I really show up in a friendship in a particular type of way. And so like, if I lose a friend, like it may take a lot out of me. And so it may be taking the time to focus on myself, to say, you know what, like, let me refocus this time on Loryn. And that's not saying to like, cut everybody off and be like, whatever, but to really just focus on what it is that you love, what's going to make you feel happy, what's going to make you feel confident, what's going to make you feel good, because right now you might not be feeling those things, obviously, because you just experienced a loss. Something that I've read in an article, which you can, it's up to you. It suggested writing a goodbye letter. And not necessarily saying like giving it to that person, but writing down the things that you didn't get to say to that person. And so I think it's twofold. So I think it's good for you to release, but also like maybe you can say these things in an eloquent way, and maybe you can give them to that person. Like, you'll hear in the conversation with Tim and I talked about an email that I sent to him because I wasn't able to convey it over the phone or in a text message. But like, it may be like a way for you to release, number one, for yourself. But again, if it's a situation where you really want to reconcile with this person, maybe writing that letter may make them see like, dang, like, okay, maybe I didn't look at it like that. Because I think when tempers are high and attitudes are involved or feelings are involved, like, we don't listen to each other. Like, it just is what it is. Like, that's just the truth. And so maybe taking the time to really express how you feel and writing a goodbye letter, again, if the relationship no longer serves you, then you can just write it, for release for yourself. But if you want to write a goodbye letter to that friend, and they may see it and say like, oh, well, I didn't realize that's how you were feeling, because you weren't able to express it in that moment, then that may be a time for you to reconcile. Right. So again, to each its own with the goodbye letter. It's not something that I personally did, but I could see how it could be helpful. And then again, another tip is, if you don't want this relationship, or if you feel like this relationship no longer serves purpose for you, don't wait for an apology. Like, if you're ready to move on and you know that this relationship you just outgrown it, don't wait for a grand apology. Don't wait for some grand gesture. Like, it may never happen. It may happen, but it may never happen. And you're never going to be able to move on from the grief and from this relationship if that's what you're waiting on. No matter how bad you feel like that person did something, don't wait for it. Move forward in life. Just don't let your pride, and I'm telling you this from personal experience, if you wait on it, you'll be waiting on it forever and ever and ever and ever. And then you're never going to be able to release that person, release those feelings, or release yourself from that situation. Even though you're like, nope, I'm not friends with that person. I don't care. Like, recently I had to have a release from a particular friend, and to say that, you know what, like, I forgive them. And I didn't realize at the time that I didn't forgive them, because I was just like, I don't really care what they do with their life. And that sounds mean, but it's the truth. Like, I don't see them on social media. Like, I don't talk to them at all. Like, I don't hear anything about them, even though like we have like enough of the same circle. Like, I just don't. But I realized I never really forgave them. And like, once I forgave them, it released, oh my God, like, you can feel the release from your body. And so if I was to ever see this person in public, like, it's like, hey, whatever, like, I'm not going to go out my way to be like, what's up? But like, if we're in the same room, there's no weird energy. There's no bad blood, it's whatever. And who knows, like, maybe in the future, if the stars align and we're in different places in our lives, then we're able to come back and be friends again. But, I had to understand that I'm not going to get that apology. So stop waiting on it. And I didn't realize that I was waiting on it until I was like, oh, wow, I forgive you. I forgive you without an apology, because like, in my mind, you need to apologize for this particular thing that you did. But even if you didn't, like, I still have to like move forward. And I was not able to move forward until I fully forgave this person without them even knowing, because forgiveness is about you. It's not about the other person. Let's be very clear on that. And if this person was like your support, so the next tip, if this person was like somebody who you heavily leaned on, find that support somewhere else. Whether it's in therapy, whether it's a, preacher, whether it's a best friend, whether it's a family member, like, find that support somewhere else. Like, if you're like, dang, like, this was my person, find that support somewhere else, a support group. I know people, like I said, I have my views on social media, but they do have like certain like support groups on social media that you can join, or like I said, support groups in churches or in the community or leaders or whatever. Like, find that support somewhere else, because at the end of the day, you are experiencing a loss. And so, especially if this person was your person, like, it's hard to now have to shift to something else, but go ahead and find that support somewhere else. You'll be pleasantly surprised at the amount of love that you would get from someone else that you may have always gotten from this person. But like, just like opening yourself up to that love, you would be very pleasantly surprised. And I think you would be really excited about the support that you get. And the other thing, or I'll say the last thing, because there was a couple other things I read in this article that I don't necessarily agree with, so I'm not going to share. But the last thing is reflect on what you've learned in the situation. And I think that's really important, is to do a, what do I call it? Like a internal audit of self. Is to really reflect on what you learned in the situation of losing this friend. Because at the end of the day, there's, whether you feel like that person was dead wrong and you don't feel like you've done anything, you can still learn something out of this situation. So, moving forward, if a situation is to ever occur or ever arise again, now you know how to handle that situation moving forward. So, those are some tips that if you choose not to move forward with your breakup of a friendship, that I think could help in the situation. I always say therapy is always an awesome one, but I also want you to know that you are experiencing a loss and you are experiencing a grief, and nobody can tell you any differently. Don't think just because like you're losing a friend, it doesn't, like, your grief doesn't matter or it doesn't have weight. It does. I'm here to tell you that it does, because I, again, went through that with Tim, and you're going to hear our conversation here in a few. But I just want you to know that your feelings do matter in the situation. You can get that support somewhere else in the situation. And, don't wait for that apology. Take that time for yourself. Do all of those things that you need to do in order for you to move on. But your grief does matter in this situation. It does hold weight in this situation, and it is valid in this situation. So as soon as we come back from this break, you will hear the conversation with Tim and I, a very candid conversation about our fallout and how we were able to move forward from it and heal from it, and what are the lessons that we learned of us falling out in our grief. And you'll hear that right after this break. This week's episode is sponsored by Anchor. If you haven't heard about Anchor, it's the easiest way to make a podcast. Let me explain. Number one, it is free. That means no monthly subscriptions, no hidden fees. It is free 99. There's creation tools that allow you to record and edit your podcast right from your phone or computer. So you don't have to buy all this equipment that I decided to buy. You can do it right from your phone or computer. And Anchor will distribute your podcast for you. So it's so easy for me to upload an episode, and it can be heard on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and many, many more. And you can actually make money from your podcast with no minimum listenership. It's everything you need to make a podcast in one place. Download the free Anchor app or go to anchor.fm to get started, and let's get into the show. All right, guys, we are back. And as I shared earlier, I thought it was really important to have this next person on. And, this is my last episode of the season, so I wanted to do something different. I always typically do like an interview style, even though it's conversational. It's really kind of interviewee. But this one, I wanted it to be like a candid conversation between friends, because, again, I think it's important to highlight that friendship breakups or friendship fallouts really can cause a grief. And I think when people think of relationships and breakups, they think of like people who are in a romantic relationships. They don't take into account, whether it's family or whether it's friends, and how detrimental and how much of a grief that can cause. And so I wanted to bring on this person because I thought it was really important for us to just really have a candid conversation. So this is really going to be more of a conversation between him and I, and just really so you guys can hear, like, we just had different views on what happened, just how we navigated life essentially without each other for the year that we didn't talk, and how we were able to reconcile and heal from that, and heal from the grief that we essentially caused in our relationship and our friendship. And so this person I'm bringing on is one of my very, very best friends. We've known each other since 2018. That's when we went to child. Was that 2018? Yeah, 2018. We were in the master's program together, and that's when we met, and we instantly connected. Literally immediately, like online. It was ridiculous. There was like this, like,
it was pretty embarrassing.
It was we're so embarrassing. It was like this Georgia State, like, orientation group or something.
Yeah, some app.
Yeah, some app. And I saw his picture and I was like, oh, he's gonna be my best friend. Like, literally, that's what happened in my mind. Like,
I said the same thing.
So So like literally that's what happened in both of our minds, and that's what happened. And I think that I know for me, he's played a really pivotal role in my life for since that time. You know, he sang at my dad's funeral. Like that's how pivotal he is in my life. He's just such an amazing person. I'm so excited he's here and just, you know, was open to being honest and candid and talking about our situation. Because I think, you know, you guys come back all the time. You know how I feel about being open and honest and vulnerable. And that's what's going to help heal you guys. So without further ado, I'd like to welcome my boo thing, Tim, or TM, honey. TM music in the building. Woo, woo. We'll talk about that. All right. We'll talk about that. See, we ain't going to act right. Okay. We don't.
Mess.
I'm not doing it. So I want to talk about, because I was just sharing with them again, like how the grief can be caused from a friendship. So I hate bringing up the situation and talking about it, but I think we have to in order for people to understand, because it was really such a petty, ridiculous situation. Like if we look back on it, that just snowballed and escalated into something bigger based off of miscommunication, essentially on both of our parts. So I'll start and just talk about the situation, and feel free to chime in and be like, nope, that ain't what happened, girl. So,
Okay.
So what happened is it was back in, I think 2019, and I was in Virginia with a friend, and Tim had actually moved at the time. Tim was living in DC, and he came into town because my roommate at the time had a Christmas party. So he came into town, and he's like, hey, I'm in your room, blah, blah, blah. Like we always would make jokes on Marco Polo, right? And so at the time I had bought a new car. And so I'm like, oh, well, Tim is at my house. He can come pick me up from the airport. That was the assumption that I made. So that I just want to put a pin in that. So like, that's kind of like how it kind of started essentially, is that I assumed that Tim was going to be able to do this because he's my friend. Because in my mind, I'm like, you're my friend. You're like, yes, you're my roommate's friend, but you my friend. Like, you know what I mean? Like,
and I feel like I've always been that person too to you, where if you needed me, I was there.
Right, exactly.
So I feel like, you know, that also kind of maybe played a part into, you know, how you feeling, how you felt. You know, because I felt like I have always, you like, Tim, hey, I need you to do this, and it's vice versa. I feel like the same way anytime, you know, I need you, I feel like you've been there. So I just wanted to kind of put it.
No, I agree. No, I agree with that. No, you're absolutely right. Because if I call Tim to say whatever, he's like, okay, cool. And so in my mind, I'm like, cool. I'm like, okay, Tim, come pick me from the airport. Obviously, Tim did not drive, but my car is there. Like the keys are there. He can totally come get me. It's not a problem. This is what's happening in my mind, right? And so I essentially tell Tim this, like, hey, you know, can you come get me from the airport? And he's like, oh, well, what time do you land? I told him what time I land. And he was like, well, you know, I'm kind of tired. Like, I'm going to be drinking. You know, the party's going to be starting. So in my mind, I'm like, I don't give a fuck about none of that. Like, you my friend. Like, you can leave that party and you can wait to drink. Like, this is what's happening again in my mind based off of probably, I'll say, just being protective of my friends. I'll go ahead and put that out there. I know that I do have that issue.
Absolutely.
That I am very overprotective of my friends. You can ask any of them. And at the again, like him just being there all the time. So I'm like, why? Like, okay, like just come get me, and then you can come back to the party. We can turn up and do whatever, right?
Right.
And so, you know, when he started like having that conversation again in my mind, I'm like, I don't care about none of that. Like, you know, so now we're having dialogue, and it's like, okay, well, you know, why don't you ride the MARTA, you know, and I can come get you. Cause at the time the train station was one exit away from my house, literally less than 5 minutes. So he's like, why don't you just ride the train there? I'll come get you from there. Like I would feel more comfortable, you know, doing that. And again, in my mind, I'm like, I'm not riding the MARTA at 8:00 at night. I might as well just get in an Uber if I'm gonna do that. So again, now I'm irritated. And so like now I'm processing and reading because this is all via text at this point. So now I'm reading this information, and I'm like, sir, like, what are you even what are you even talking about? But of course, I'm looking at a lens from irritation. So anything he's saying, any emoji he's putting, I'm over it. I'm like, you know what? Like, it's fine. I done found a ride. Because at that time I had called, you know, my friend, and I was like, hey, I need you to come get me for the airport. Because I had already moved on and like found a solution to the situation. Because I'm like, I don't need all these excuses. I'm over it. And so he sends an emoji. I don't even know what emoji he sent. I think he sent rolling eyes. It was a rolling eyes. Yeah, it was a rolling eyes emoji. So I call him. I'm like, "You good? Like, what's all the attitude about?" And so now I'm calling him, and so now we're having a conversation. But the conversation is already like, "What's the problem?" Like you send rolling eye emojis. I'm already irritated. So like, what are we talking about? So now I feel like you showing out in front of not only my roommate, but the other people who are in the house. So like, let's talk about what the real issue is. And so and
I think it's also like when we were talking back and forth, I was kind of like smirking or laughing. Like I was just like, Loryn, like, like, I was like, it's not a big deal. But I think for me it was, I think it was like more so the timeline. Yeah. And I don't want to cut in and get to my side, so I'll just wait on that.
No, you tell. Yeah,
I do. Yeah, I just, I was when you called, I was just kind of like, it's just an emoji. It's not that serious. Kind of, that was kind of my stance on it. I didn't take it that way, but again, it escalated. Like you said, anything that I said was already a no go. So, you felt how you felt already. Right. So if I wasn't, jumping in the car and getting on my way, there was something else I felt like you maybe wanted to hear. Right. In that moment.
No, I agree with you. Because again, I'm already calling from a lens of irritation. I'm like, what are you saying? Rolling out? Like, it's not that deep. And then, of course, I have my friend at the time in Virginia who was looking at these text messages. She's like, yeah, I don't really know about that. I don't, like, I would just come get you. So now it's fuel to the fire, right? So at this point, I'm just kind of like, whatever. Like, it's fine. I've already found another ride. It's not that deep. It is what it is. So, get to the airport, get on the plane. And, at that time, I'm like, I got to go to work in the morning. I was already irritated. I had to go to work. Let's just start and finish there. So I had to go to work in the morning. And so I knew my roommate was having this party, and I'm like, I can't stay here because like, it's going to be too loud. It's kids running upstairs. Like I can't do none of this shit. And so she dropped me. She came to get me. She dropped me off. I came in the house and repacked a bag and like was going to go stay at my friend's house. Now I didn't say anything to Tim. I didn't say anything to anybody. Because in my mind, I'm like, I just can't stay here. And I don't want to be a dick and be like, hey, like I got to go to work in the morning. Like, and like shut down the party. Like it's never that deep. But again, I think at that time, me and Tim had not talked. The last conversation we had was like, okay, girl, like whatever, so I'll let you, and you can tell me, at that time, like I had texted him and I was like, hey, I'm staying at Nicole's house. You can stay in my room. And you were kind of like, it's not that deep, like, whatever. So I want you to talk about how you felt in that moment. Cause I don't know if I've ever asked you that, like seeing that, did you feel like I was being like shady, or did you feel like, like I don't even feel like doing her shit?
Yeah, because I mean, like I guess, like when we were going back and forth through text messages, when you were heading to the airport, I just felt like I kept trying to at this point maybe it was too late because you was already in your feelings about the situation. So I felt like everything that I would say, I was like, Loryn, I'll come get you. Don't worry about it. Like it's fine. Even though I was irritated about it, and I'll get to that. But I was, more so trying to rectify the situation. And I think for me, the main reason why I changed kind of my feeling on coming to get you was only because you had mentioned that you did not feel safe at that time of the night getting on the MARTA. And for me as a male, obviously I was raised to respect women and, to be respectful. And me as a man, I felt uncomfortable at that moment, regardless of the timeline and the reason why, I didn't want to come to the airport or, whatever. Once you said that a light bulb came on for me. And I said, I'll come get you. You know what I mean? Because during that time, I think sex trafficking or whatever was a big thing. And I know you felt very uncomfortable, at that time of the night. So that's, I think for me, when you came, when you came to the house, you had sent me that text message saying that you were going to stay at your friend's house. But I wanted to fix the situation. I think for me, I was just like, this is ridiculous. Like, it shouldn't be this deep, things of that sort. And I just felt like, you were kind of, already over it. So, I did feel a way because, I came to the house, I'm staying here. We had, how close we were. Right. And I was only here for literally 24 hours, like in Atlanta for 24 hours. And, obviously it was very difficult when I moved away, you know, obviously because we were so close, it was just kind of like a breakup almost, even though we weren't breaking up.
Right.
For me to be in Atlanta for 24 hours and not even see your face, yeah, that bothered me. I was just like, whoa, you know, you came in the house and got your clothes and you left. So it did kind of feel that way, you know, in terms of like, you know, well, I'm over it, so I don't care. But I mean, again, you did offer me to stay in your room and things of that sort. But it still felt, I still felt the way, to be honest.
Yeah. No, that's good to know. Like, I didn't know that. Like, I could tell, obviously, by the response. I was kind of like, what is, okay, I'm fine.
Yeah.
Because, like you said, at that point, I was like, I'm over it. I don't, like, we'll figure it out tomorrow. Like,
yeah.
I had already had a full emotional breakdown on the plane about my parents randomly because it was around Christmas, of course, at this time. And so I was just like, I don't really have the capacity to deal with this, not taking into account how he might have felt. Like, hearing him say that now, like, hearing him say, like, well, like, I came in town, I'm in your house, you know, and I don't even get to see you. Like, it's not even that deep. And it wasn't. Like, this whole situation, and that's why I wanted to put, like, a caveat. This whole situation of why we fell out is not that deep. But where it got deep is because there was miscommunication and because we didn't speak in the way, or speak to each other in the way that we should have. And that's where the fallout happened. And I feel like, again, this is important because I feel like that happens in a lot of friendships. I don't hear like anything crazy about friendship and like, this person tried to kill my dog. Like, you know what I mean? It's never that deep. It's always like, well, they said this or they didn't talk to this person. It's like, well, was it that deep for you to fall out? Right. And I do think that there's some friendships that don't serve you a purpose anymore and you move forward from it. But then I think there are some that you can heal from, but we'll get to that. But
absolutely.
Yeah. Hearing him say that now, I didn't really know that's what it was because I was such in a place of like, I'm just ready to go to sleep. I don't really care about nothing else that's happening right now. So fast forward, Tim leaves, you know, that next day. I'm like, hey, you know, let me know when you make it back to DC, you know, let's talk. So he calls me when he gets back to DC. So now we're on the phone and we're talking and I'm just kind of like, I felt that, you know, when you were telling me I was in my feelings and I was being sensitive, like, you know, like you weren't hearing me, like I wasn't in my feelings or I wasn't being sensitive because let me just be clear, at the time I was in therapy and I had already had a really, really major fallout with a friend that I have known for 16 plus years at the time. And Tim knows about that as well. And so I was really working through that and then working through this first year of, you know, not having both of my parents here for the holidays. And so like anybody who called me sensitive or tried to like deem my grief as a reason of why I was acting like that. Oh, I was knucking if you bucking, period. Like, you know what I mean? Like
let's be clear. I never, you know, associated the passing of your parents with your emotions.
Right.
For me, it was just, there was something very sensitive about, you know, you feeling not, I guess, accepting your feelings.
Right.
It just seemed like there was just some sensitivity there.
Right.
But no, I definitely knew not to go there, and I would never want to go there because I did witness what happened, you know, with your other friend. So,
right.
You know, and I knew that was a very, you know, sensitive topic for you.
Right.
But in terms of for me, you know, the sensitivity that I was referring to was more so, you know, we're getting upset over an emoji.
Right. Right.
And it was just like, okay, you're being very sensitive right now. Because, you know, for me, it was just like, you know, we are like, you know, freaking frat. You know what I mean? And I feel like we can say things to each other, get over it, move on. And for me, I just felt like an emoji wasn't worth losing a friend.
Right.
And especially like a friend that's more like family. You know what I mean? So for me, I was like, why are we arguing over an emoji? Like, this is like, it's just rolling. I feel like, can I not roll my eyes at you? Like, we like, right. It was just tripping me out. I was like, it's just an emoji. But, you know, again, like you mentioned, like you had your own feeling about it. And I mean, hearing you speak about it, obviously it does make sense and it is valid, you know, in terms of your feelings. But
right.
I think we just were feeling slightly different because, I mean, most of the conversation was through text and we know how that can be misconstrued.
Okay. Let's start and finish there. That's why I hate text messages, y'all. I'll be like, that's why I'm like, we can call and talk, but you know, like you said, so in my mind, and also like the word sensitive, like now I've gotten better about it because again, thank God for therapy, but like it's a trigger word for me because I did used to be like hella sensitive about everything. So when someone called me sensitive, I'm like, oh no, you don't know where I've came from. But I'm not in the moment. I'm not able to convey that because I didn't have the tools at the time to be able to say that to Tim. Like, well, Tim, when you said I was sensitive, instead of asking him like, what am I being sensitive about? I immediately associated, you think I'm being sensitive because I'm grieving, and that's what you're not going to do. But now hearing you say like you're being sensitive about an emoji, that makes sense. Like, Loryn, you ODing about an emoji right now. Like, it's not that deep. And and again, logically, it's like, you right. I am being OD about
because
it.
you called me, like when I sent that message and I said, I did like the 2 rolling the eye emojis and I said something like,
I'm gonna come get you. You was like, Loryn, I'm just gonna come get you. We'll work it out in the car or something like that. Yeah.
So you called me, like you didn't text back right away. You called me and you was like, what's the attitude about Tim? And I was just like, well, Loryn, I started like kind of like laughing, but like there is no attitude, and it's just like it just kind of flared from there.
Right.
And it just never really recovered.
Exactly.
After that moment. But it was just like, for me, it was just like, I don't have an attitude. I just was like, okay, Loryn, I'll come get you.
Right.
Like, it was like, you know what I mean? It was just like that versus like, oh my God, like really? Like it wasn't, you know what I mean? I just it just was taken long, I guess.
No, I agree. No, I agree.
In that moment, I was just like, this is ridiculous. It's just an emoji.
Yeah.
When, again, from your part, it stands on it. You're reading it a certain way. So it just was two different views.
Just perception at that moment. Yeah. So when we're on the phone and I'm telling him this and he's like, Loryn, like, it's not that deep, blah, blah, blah. I don't even know where it turned left, honestly. I do remember vividly like feeling like he's not listening to me. I remember vividly being like, he's not listening. And I kept saying, I said, Tim, you're not listening to me. Tim, you're not listening to me. So now we're talking over each other. So now I'm yelling at the top of my lungs. And I'm like, Tim, you're not listening to me. Like I'm screaming at him at the top of my lungs. And he's still talking. And I'm screaming. And I'm like, you're not listening. And I'm like, you know what? We're just going to get off the phone because you're not listening to me. And he's just kind of like, I don't know what he's looking like, obviously, because we're on the phone. But we just get off the phone at that point. Right?
Yeah.
And so now I'm just like, I don't have anything to say. I know he doesn't have anything to say. And we just kind of left it at that for that day. And then I think maybe the next day or a couple days later, I'm like, hey, I text him something. And he's like, unless you're apologizing for how you spoke to me, then like we don't need to talk. And so now I'm looking at my phone like, spoke to him about what? Like, so now I'm like, what are you even talking about? I yelled at you for 2 seconds. Is that what you're talking about? I'm not apologizing for yelling at you for 2 seconds. So now I'm like, hell no. Like, ain't nothing to apologize about for me hollering at you for 2 seconds because you weren't listening to me. Oh no, you need to apologize for calling me sensitive and assuming my grief is the reason why I'm acting like this. So now we're at 2. So now it started as one small thing. It because the perception was different, it snowballed into something else. Then it snowballed into something else because now, tempers had flared. And now we're having 2 different conversations, unbeknownst to us at the time. Because I'm like, what are you talking about? I'm not apologizing to you for getting mad because you weren't listening. And then I'm like, you need to apologize for me for calling me sensitive and acting like I don't know how to control my grief. Like that is, so now we're like, we don't even know what conversation we're having this morning. We don't even care about the whole car thing anymore. We've moved past that conversation. It has now gotten into emotions and feelings and shit that we didn't even start out that way. You know what I mean? And so, at that time I'm like, okay, clearly us talking on the phone is not working. Clearly us texting is not working. Let me try and send him an email. That's my way. Like email is like, if I send you an email, if we argue, like that's kind of my last ditch effort. Cause maybe like, again, text can be misconstrued and email is essentially text, right? But like, I feel like with email, I know how to make it quote unquote professional and Tim does as well. And so I'm like, let me try one last ditch effort right before New Year's happened. And I was like, I don't want to go into the new year with this. And so I just wrote him an email and I was just like, hey, this is how I felt. I was wrong for assuming that you were going to come get me. And so that's why I want to put the pen in there and take it out at this point. Like I was wrong for assuming that you would come get me just because you're at my house and you're my friend. I didn't take into account that you're tired and you're going to be drinking. Like I didn't take any of that into account. I just took into account of you're my friend. You are at my house. Come get me. Because I would do the same thing for you. Right.
Right.
So I send him that, and I'm like, I think I can take responsibility that I did get irritated towards the end of the conversation. I did raise my voice, and that was not right for me to do. But I just felt like that you telling me that I was in my feelings and I was sensitive when I kept telling you I'm not, like, you're not listening to me. And I just think that that's something in the friendship that we should respect of each other. Like, not take it at face value. Like, we've been friends long enough and deep enough to know that if I tell you something, how I feel, that's how I feel. And if I'm like, Tim, I'm not in my feelings, I'm not being sensitive. And you're like, yes, you are. Yes, you are. Yes, you are. Like, no, that's not what's happening. Like, I'm telling you, I'm not. Like, it literally is just a miscommunication on both of our parts. And again, this if we were having a logical conversation, this is what would have happened of us talking. And even me looking at that emoji, all of that, would have happened, but I basically said, like, I don't want to take any of this into 2021 or 2020, 2020. Right. So if you think that, we can respect each other's boundaries, going into 2020, I would like to continue this friendship. If not, let me know. I will say Tim was angry when he wrote this email. Baby, because when I read that email, honey, I said, ain't no punctuation. It's exclamation points. I said, baby, he was typing with them fingers. Do you hear me? Going off. I was like, look.
Sure did. Over it.
He was like, girl. He was like, first of all, I was like, oh shit. When somebody start with first of all, I said, this email is not at all going to be nice. And he was like, as a man, I was gonna come get you because that's how I was right. And I'm like, what is he even talking about? He is mad at me. He was like, he basically was like, you was wrong. Don't let nobody talk to me like that. And I'm just like, God, he is upset. He was like, and actually, I don't want to move forward this friendship right now. I need a break. And I was like, what I
don't recall.
Shit. Shall we pull receipts? I don't remember.
Do not recall.
Who said that? Who said that? Not me.
Well, here we are.
And did. So he was not having it. And when I tell you my heart hurt, like in that moment, because again, this is a person who meant so much to me. And for him to be like, no, like, I don't know, I'm cool. I'm like, oh my God. But I just didn't think that that's how that was going to go. Like, I just thought he was going to like respond and we were going to like work through it. But I'm like.
Yeah, I think like for me, definitely in that moment, like, when we, when I got back to, DC and, you reached out and you said, hey, I just finished up with dinner or something like that. And call me when you were available. Right. So I called you. And, I really was trying to rectify the situation. Yeah. I was just kind of like trying to understand, why did it go so left? And, you kept mentioning, your side, and I felt like I wasn't being heard. You felt like you wasn't being heard. I think it was just kind of a back and forth because you're like, you're on the sensitive thing. Like, I'm not being sensitive. I'm like, Loryn, you are being sensitive. And I was, purposefully speaking to you in a certain tone because I did not want to elevate the conversation. Right. And I didn't want it to go, up there. But you, I felt like, were already up there. Yeah. And you did not come down. It was just like, it only like elevated. And I never really heard you speak to me that way before.
I
and
don't
for
recall.
Me, I'm sure you don't. Should I put receipts?
Okay.
But no, like for me, it was just like I was on the phone. I'm looking like, who is she yelling at? Like what? My own mother doesn't talk to me this way. Like I would not, and I think that I even said that I was just like, like I said, the way you're speaking to me, I said, I just cannot accept this. I said, you need to apologize for how you spoke to me because I felt very disrespected in that moment. Like, and I'm just like, and I do recall, I did apologize, for offending you. Yeah. I said, because I was really was trying to work through, fixing the issue. I just feel like, again, but at the same time, I just don't tolerate disrespect in terms of, you know what I mean? So for me, it's like, if you say you're my friend, then you're going to respect how I feel. Just how you mentioned, like you felt like, if you say it, I should believe it. Like, I'm not being sensitive. But for me, for it to escalate to that level, you know, over the emoji, to me, I felt like that is just extremely sensitive. You know, in that moment, I'm just like, this is crazy. Like, we are like neck and neck.
Right.
People are tired of our presence. You know, like we,
literally,
you know, walk, you know, and it's just, for me, I was just like, okay, if you are not going to respect how I feel, then there's no need to have this conversation, because I'm trying to rectify. I'm apologizing for how I made you feel, but why can't I get that same respect in return? And when, you know, we couldn't get to that resolve, for me, I was like, there's nothing else to talk about. You know, like, you know, we're adults. You know, we're not teenagers where you know, we're petty and immature. I felt like, you know, it was stubborn on my part and, you know, your part, in terms of us not speaking for as long as we did. But, you know, we both had to deal with it how we wanted to deal with it. But I just felt like, you know, in that moment, that's kind of why, you know, I kind of was like, all right, we're good. Because, you know, because it was different. Like, both of us, we've never spoken to each other like in an elevated tone like that. So for me, it was just like, whoa, you're mad. So, yeah.
That's so funny hearing you say that, because to me, I'm like, well, so this is how I look at apologies. So to me, I'm like, what does he want? A grand apology? I'm sorry. I'm like, I just acknowledged that I was wrong for speaking to you like that. Like, I already said sorry. Like, what do you want me to say? Like, Tim, I'm sorry.
Well, I think in that moment, I mean, you saying that you said sorry, I completely believe that you said that you were sorry. In that moment, I didn't hear that apology.
Oh, for sure.
I can be honest.
We clearly didn't hear each other at all.
Yeah, because I was just like, well, I'm not going to get an apology. Like, okay, well.
Child, the way that you was going off in that email, honey, I know you did not see anything but red.
Look, okay.
I think he had some caps, okay?
Right.
No punctuation, run-on sentences. I said, he is mad.
Look. Upset.
Okay. Babe, when he said, I don't want to move forward with this friendship, I was like, oh my God. Like, I was really like, in that moment, like when I read it, like my heart kind of sank a little bit. And I was just like, but then of course, a part of me is like, well, fine. If you don't want to be my friend, then fine. Like, whatever, you know? And I was just kind of like, dang. But I really was hurt. But my pride was not going to allow me to say anything to him, because I'm like, you know what? Like, whatever. Like, I tried to reach out. You don't want to, you know, talk to me, then fine. Like, if you want a grand apology from me, like, I don't know what you want me to say. I've already said sorry. I've acknowledged I was wrong. But also, again, I think a lot of that came from me having already being in a situation with someone who, now that particular person did say something about my grief is the reason why I was acting the way that I was acting. And so, like, I was already like, oh no, I'm not going to be dealing with nobody doing all of this, right? And what I do know now, what I recognize now, like learning as much as I've had and doing this podcast, is that sometimes grief does make you do crazy things. It does. It really does, if you let it.
Absolutely.
But if you don't let it, then, you know, that's a different conversation. If you learn how to live with the distractions, and I put a really good post on my social media. So if you're not following me, follow me at TTSS Pod. Thanks. So, plug. But,
Thanks.
you know, just talking about like, you know, how grief is the passenger in this, you know, world or car of life. But it's funny, like in that moment, I'm like really, 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 really hurt. But because I was in this other situation, then I'm like, oh, heck no, I'm not reaching out to him. Like, whatever.
Yeah.
It's fine. I'm going into 2020 with a clear vision, baby.
Right. And I think it was at the end of the year. I think it was like the 23rd of December or something like that.
It was right for your birthday. Sure was.
Yeah.
Because I was like, I'm not telling him happy birthday.
You did, though.
I did.
You did. Have the receipt.
Okay.
But no, what was I going to say? We were just mentioning something and it just...
We were talking about the beginning of the year 2020.
So, yeah, and I think for me and my stance as well, I know how you mentioned, like, you know, you just had a friend that, you know, who tried to, you know, connect, you know, your grief with, you know, kind of your reactions and things of that sort. And for me, you know, and you know this, you know, I had two really close friends as well that I had recently lost the year before, right when I met you.
Yeah.
So, and I was, you know, still dealing with that, you know what I mean? And for me, it was just kind of like, you know, I felt like my emotions were also, I felt how I felt, you know, with you, because I felt like wow, this is happening again. It's for like the third time, and it's the third best friend. So it's like, okay. And I was just, like you said, it was 2020, new goals, new friends, like, move. Yeah, I had just moved, to DC, to Maryland, literally, a couple of weeks before that. So it's just like, all right, new start. All right. Oh, out with the old, in with the new, kind of stands in that moment. Because it's just like, all right, you don't want to apologize to the new, let's move on.
Right.
There's nothing else to talk about.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think that I was also still, dealing with that. I think that also, had me a little in my feelings.
Yeah, so we were just we were essentially grieving like our own grievances, and now we've created this one within our own friendship that we had, which is crazy, and I think that's what happens a lot of times in friendships, is that there's outside things that are happening in your life, outside griefs or whatever is going on in your life that somehow seeps into a situation or a friendship, and then you have now created this grief or this situation that was not necessary because these because you never healed these other outside things that are happening. And that happens a lot of times. And that's why I wanted to bring, just to the platform so people can hear like, oh, like they really had like two different, things. And that's what happened is, I will say like over the year that him and I didn't talk, like, and I told him this, like when we reconnected, like it really hurt my feelings. Cause there would be times like mind you, like anytime something happens, I'm calling Tim. Like, period. Yeah. Like, there's a lineup, but there's like a lineup of people who I call, and Tim is always one of them. And so, like, when things would happen in my life, I couldn't call. It's not that I couldn't call him. Let me not say that. But like, when I say couldn't, I say that in air quotes. Like, I couldn't call him and say, "Oh my God, like, let me tell you what happened, or let me tell you about this guy, or da da da." Like, those were not the conversations that were happening anymore, and it hurt my feelings. And I'm just kind of like, okay. But then like when people would ask me, they're like, well, why don't you call him? I'm not calling him. What does he want, a grand apology? Like, so then I would immediately come back to that. Right? Like immediately coming back to
I heard that in your voice in that moment. I just wanted to say that.
Because you already know. I'm not calling him. Shoot, who you talking to? I'm not, no, absolutely. He say he want to be my friend. I ain't begging nobody to be my friend. That is what I can tell you. Okay?
Right.
So, like, in those moments, like I would be feeling like, dang, like I want to call Tim, but then somebody asked me, girl, I'm not calling him. No, you call him, whatever. And like it had gotten so like ridiculous in my mind to the point, like I don't know if I've ever told Tim this, but I like my friends were still following him on social media. And so like I saw one of my friends like liking his post. And so I was like, hey, I said, I see you commenting on Tim's post a lot, and I don't want him to think that he has access to you. Okay, so can you not? She was like,
yeah. And I would say your friends definitely, they have your back. And I mean, I completely, even though I did miss them.
Yeah, because we integrated. We're all friends at the end of the day. We're all friends.
Respect that their loyalty lies with you. You know what I mean? So, and I will say that they were, they did respect, that. And I completely can't understand that.
I know, but that's so like ridiculous and petty, and I felt bad about it. Like, how, as a 30-something-year-old adult, are you telling people to like stop liking his posts? He didn't kill you. He didn't like sleep with your man. He didn't like shoot. Like it's y'all just had a disagreement. Like this is petty, right? Yeah. And in my mind, I knew that was what was happening, but again, processing it and working through it and understanding like this is like this is silly. Like, this is silly. And it had really gotten to a head at one point. He had came into town, unbeknownst to me at the time. Him and my roommate are friends. Because, again, like I said, we have integrated friend groups at this time. And so they're still friends. And so she would ask me randomly, like, are you and Tim good? And I'm like, nope, I haven't talked to him. And she's like, okay. Like, and I'm like, why is she asking me that? Like, stop randomly asking me. Like, And so, but... But girl, if you listen, talk about you.
Right.
She know because I had a conversation with her too, child. So I'm just like, so he came into town unbeknownst to me, and I saw like, mind you, again, I have like, I didn't block him or unfollow him or anything on social media. I think you can like take a break, and I was like, take a break, whatever. So like, I never saw Tim's stuff, and so this particular night, his story came up on my Instagram, and I'm like, this is interesting. So I watched his story, and I'm like, this looks like a restaurant that the only time I heard of this restaurant is from my roommate. Because let me tell you something about her. She goes to places that you won't spend money, okay? So I knew, I was like, he's in Atlanta. Okay, cool. He's at this restaurant. The only person I've heard talk about this restaurant is her. And so at the very next one, he didn't show her, but I heard her in the back. She laughed. So I'm like, oh, he's with her. Okay, cool. So I know he's probably with her best friend as well. Cool story. So I didn't say anything to her. She said, she was like, I knew you had an attitude. You was walking around the house real quiet. And so I finally said something to her maybe like a few days later. I'm like, why would you like go out with him and not tell me he's even in town? Well, I didn't know y'all were friends, and I didn't want, and it was a whole situation that her and I had to work through. But, at the same time, like one of my friends at the time was like, well, Loryn, like he didn't, he didn't kill anybody. He didn't sleep with your man. He didn't do anything crazy. So like, why can't she have a friendship with him? And I think at that moment I was like, you know what? You're right. Like, this is silly. Like, because you're mad, like he can't have his own friendships. Like, this is dumb. And she can't have her own friendships. This is silly. Yeah, I think it was and it sounds silly, like a silly breakthrough, but that's what it was. I was like, this is crazy. Like, this is crazy. Like, because I don't know. I think it was summertime at that point, maybe, but I still didn't talk to him. Let's be clear. I still didn't talk to him.
It was some time.
It was. So, it was. I was like, I'm not talking to him. Still didn't talk to him. Yep. But finally around, was it Christmas time? November? It was, I don't remember. I think it was in the holidays. I was just like, I just randomly woke up one day and I was like, I really missed him.
It was New Year's Eve.
It was New Year's Eve. Oh, wow. But, oh, yeah, because I was going to get my hair done. So I was like, I really, really missed him. And I'm just going to call him and just see what happens. I had no script. I had no idea what I was going to say. I was like,
calculated.
Right. Because y'all know me, honey. Planner. Okay. Script out. Ready. And I had none of that. I was like, what if he may not answer? He might curse me out. He might be like, oh, please. Like, but I'm just going to just shoot my shot and see what happens. And I just called him and I just said, I have just been thinking about you and I miss you. And I, just want to apologize for, however I made you feel. And I think that we've both grown past the situation at this point. And it just kind of just a pissing contest at this point between both of us. And, I want to know how we can heal from this and like work through it. And that's when he explained to me, and I'll let you explain, like, just how he felt. Because at the time, I didn't know that's how he felt.
Yeah.
I didn't know because he was like, I felt like I wasn't heard. And I'm like, oh, wow. Like, I felt like I wasn't heard. So it was like, again, another breakthrough to be like, oh, we were having two different conversations. And that's why it didn't work out.
Yep.
That's why it didn't work out. So I'll let you just explain how you felt when I called early in the morning because it was like 8 o'clock.
Yeah. So on New Year's Eve, I mean, when you called, I mean, I felt like you were very sincere. You know what I mean? And not only that, obviously I know you. So I think the first thing you said was, when you had explained kind of your feelings and I told you mine, your response to my feelings were completely different. You were like, you know what? I didn't even know that's how you felt.
Yeah.
And then you apologized immediately for that. And that's really all I wanted then, as well. I just wanted that acknowledgement, like, Tim, like, I shouldn't have talked to you that way. I'm sorry. I back up. You know what I mean? And we probably most likely would have been fine. Who knows? But I know for me, I just felt very strongly in that moment that, that's just a tone that's not acceptable.
Yeah.
With anyone, I mean, I just felt, you should never have to get to that place. But obviously things happen. And I think that at the end, when you called, I mean, I missed you like crazy. So, I mean, like the same, like how you felt about, not being able to call, you knew everything that I was doing, anybody that I was talking to, any crazy little escapades, anything, you know what I mean? Work life, I mean, personal life, everything. We just talked about almost everything, I mean, we saw each other every week, if not every other day, if not every, it was just like we lived 5 minutes away from each other. So it was just like we were always around each other. So for me, obviously, not having that, I had just moved. We just left. We just had a whole breakthrough, crying and all.
Right.
I'm presenting her with flowers, and she gives me a card.
Don't give me emotion.
We, had our own little moment, because it was like, this is the end.
Yeah.
And I decided to, leave Atlanta, and, it just was tough. We spent the last week, I stayed there at, your place, for the last week. And and then, we left. I think I even cried in the car like for a while. I still have a video on my phone. It's hilarious. Me just saying my goodbyes to Atlanta, and just all the experiences and everything like that. But yeah, no, because I had a long ride. I drove from Atlanta to Maryland, so it was like a 10-hour ride. It was a lot to just kind of think about. But in that moment, for me, I was just like, wow. Like, I did miss you, and I was just like, that entire year for me, I had lost, two close friends prior to that. And then I met you, and we were like neck and neck. And, not having that close friend, and then moving to a whole other state, to me, it was a very kind of like lonely process. It was just like, I don't make friends in terms of, I don't have close, I don't let people get close to me quickly. Yeah. You know what I mean? You got to be very, very special in order to do that, which I think you are, right? So
meanwhile, I'm like, hi, friend. Problem.
Yeah, like we connected, I think, on a mental level or spiritual level. It was a lot of just different ways we connected. But in terms of like, I don't make best friends very quickly, I would say that, and I just felt like, me moving to another state, it was just like, it was tough because, I'm here, and then I have no close friends. Obviously I know a lot of people have a lot of friends, but like you get your regular people that you call, every day when something happens, you're going through something, well, you have a little situation, and you want to send a picture, how does this person look? You think you know what I mean? Like we just didn't have that anymore. I didn't have that anymore. So for me, I was just like, wow, this sucks, but again, I still felt, I had to, stand in how I felt, and I had to stand my ground, because I was just like, it's not okay, and I'm, I just felt like, me, I'm a good person, I never, tried to offend you in any way, but, it did offend you, and I had to acknowledge that. And, just not getting that in return for me was just like, okay, it was unfortunate. But that year was it was lonely. I can't lie. It was very much lonely. So yeah, I didn't have that friend that I can call anymore.
Emotional.
Yeah. So
no, that's real, because like when I called him, and I was just like, when he told me like I felt like I wasn't being heard, and I immediately apologized. He's like, I can apologize as well. Like I was being, maybe insensitive in the moment, and that's all I wanted. So all he wanted was an apology for me being like him not feeling heard, and I just wanted an apology for essentially like maybe him not hearing me, and maybe being a little insensitive in the moment for whatever reason it was. And and if like we could have got to that a year ago, we wouldn't have went through that year being lonely. But we both are very much standing in like, no, like I need you to acknowledge this is what it was. But how was either one of us going to acknowledge it if neither one of us was going to talk to each other, right?
Right.
And I think that's the biggest lesson here that I'll say that I've learned is that like in any friendship or any relationship, like if it's something that you really want to make work, I think you have to really do kind of a deep dive into yourself and figure out what it is. Because at the end of the day, we all know you can't change anybody but yourself. People are going to be who they are, but if you can do an internal audit of self, I think that can help pull you out of that moment of grieving. Because essentially I was grieving not having a friend for a whole year. Obviously got me to the point, like so much so that I'm like, I cannot do this without this person in my life. And, at least with at least me apologizing for whatever it is that I did wrong. And if he chooses to like not be my friend after that, then that's something that I'm going to have to deal with. But I at least have to acknowledge what I did wrong in the situation, hoping and praying that like, he can do the same and we can heal and move forward from it and continue this amazing friendship that we've had. And I'm just so grateful that he did and was able and open and willing to do that and to heal with me so we can be here today Acting and
Okay.
fool and cutting up.
Thanks.
Oh my God. What do you feel
Yeah.
like that you learned from that whole situation of us kind of falling out and coming back together?
I think that, for me, I just felt life is too short in general. And I feel like if you really do care about someone, whether it's a friend, a family member, I feel like I'm like a big advocate now. Like when I have friends or family members, that, have issues with other family members or friends, I'm like, just like, I'm always trying to like talk it out. Like, wait, this person maybe, maybe you're misconstruing, like, I always try to kind of walk them through it and, help them fix the issue, because for me, learning from my experiences, I would have hoped that things have gone differently. Obviously, I mean, a whole year, and the amount of things that we probably would have done, like in that year, we missed out on. And so for me, it's just to really listen to your friends, your loved ones, really like I said, if it's a friendship that is worth it, speak up. Like sometimes I think stubbornness gets in the way. And I know that I can be stubborn. Sometimes you need some space. I would say sometimes you need, a couple of days, maybe a couple of weeks, or maybe a couple of months, depending on the situation. But, don't allow it to go too long.
Yeah.
I think a year was a little bit long, but hey, I mean, again, we both had emotions and feelings, and I appreciate, you reaching out, because I don't know when I would have. I knew that I, at some point, would have, if it had gone too long, but I do appreciate you reaching out, and I think that it was appropriate too, just depending on just seeing how we ended.
Yeah.
For me, it was just like, okay, I completely hear you. You're giving me exactly what I've been asking for. I clearly miss you. So for me, it was just like, it was inevitable. It was like, absolutely. When we start back,
right. Talking about sales, should we get into
it? So I mean, definitely just, just I wouldn't take as long as I did. People that I love, I just felt like at some point you have to mature and grow from experiences like this, and like I said, you were one of the third friends that I had lost, but the others weren't as important to my life. I don't feel like I feel like, some people are in your life for a season and some are there for a lifetime. And I do feel like our friendship is definitely more so of a lifetime. We're like family.
I ain't going nowhere.
Okay, said what I said. I just feel like, we definitely, were meant to be friends. So I just, I definitely learned from the situation. Definitely, I feel like with speaking with you, I think that in the future, I feel like we definitely would handle ourselves differently.
Oh, for sure.
Obviously, I respect your feelings and how you felt. And, I genuinely feel like you respect my feelings and how I feel. And I mean, we're mature. I feel like we get along very, very well. We don't really have run-ins or issues or concerns. I mean, we don't agree on everything, but we know how to. Okay, Tim, I don't agree with that.
Right,
Loryn, I
that's
don't agree
cute.
with that.
Cool story.
But what I mean, like we have our own. We're our own person, but at the same time, I just would definitely handle it a little different, because I wouldn't want that to happen again. So
yeah. I agree. Yeah. Oh, I love it. And I love you. I really hope that this helps somebody who may be going through a struggle, whether it's with a friendship or, family member or whatever. But, that's why I just wanted to bring Tim so we can be candid and you could see that, we just had really different views, and it just, that's all it was, is it was just different views. But Tim, y'all should follow him on social media. So if you can just give them where they can follow you, y'all should follow him. Look, I'm not saying that y'all can't follow him. Look, I'm not gonna be petty like I was.
You over it or you not?
Right. Come on, girl. Jesus. But no, you should follow Tim. He has a new EP out.
Yes. So exciting.
Yes. This is your first EP.
It is my first EP, yes.
Oh my God.
It's called Fall Back. And yes, you can follow me on Instagram at TMMusicENT. I'm also on Twitter, same name, TMMusicENT, where you can see my links to all of my content, from my singles to music video that I shot, an interview that I did,
some merch,
music magazine. I have merchandise. So yeah, just check me out.
Yeah, you might see me pop up on his Instagram, you know what I'm saying, every now and then when he comes to
you
the
know
city.
what I'm saying.
You know, we're traveling to whatever, you know.
The streets up.
That's why I'm like, Ohio, please get warm. I am cold. I want to go out. But I don't go out in cold, okay? I mean, I don't go out often, but when I do, it's warm, okay?
And it's a situation.
Okay. Shutting places down, turning them out. I mean, you're welcome in advance.
Dance battles.
Cincinnati, if you are listening, you're welcome. We're coming to tear it up, okay?
Cookies, pretzels, hands.
They don't know the inside joke. I have to put that on my social media what the inside joke is so y'all can understand. But thank you, Boo, for being here. I'm going to get into my wrap up, but I really, really hope this helps somebody. I think it did help somebody. So I love you and thank you so much.
Thank you for having me.
I really hope y'all enjoyed that conversation with Tim and I. I know we be cracking up all the time, but I love him. But I was just so grateful that he, number one, answered the phone on New Year's Eve back in 2020, and that he was just open to hearing me and my apology and knowing that I was genuine and that I really missed him. And I'm just grateful that we were able to move forward from that. So that really wasn't that long ago, if you think about it, honestly, because we didn't talk for a year and then we reconciled New Year's Eve. And what is it now? April, at this point. So yeah, it wasn't that long ago, but we picked right back up where we left off, which I absolutely love. And that's how I knew that Tim and I, were here for a lifetime or a long time, not a season. So I'm just super grateful and just glad that he was able to come on and be super candid about it. So I hope that did help anyone who was going through the situation. And as I said earlier, if the situation no longer serves you purpose, that's totally fine as well. I want you to know that's also okay. For me and Tim, I knew that we weren't there. We weren't at a place where this friendship no longer serves me. I knew that Tim is a person that I wanted in my life. And obviously I was a person that Tim wanted in his life. We both are just stubborn at times. And we were standing strong in what we felt. And we didn't realize that the other what the other person was feeling or how they were grieving in that moment. We were just kind of like, nope, this is how I feel. I'm going to stand in this and this is what it's going to be. And so, when I made that decision to be like, you know what, I'm going to call him, like, this is like, I'm not going into 2021. If I learned anything in 2020, it is who is important to you, what is important to you, and what serves you is what matters. And I realized at that time that Tim was a person who was important to me. And I wanted to bring him into this new 2021 with me. I knew it was going to be a different experience for me being up here in Ohio by myself and really just, needing that support from friends. And when I think of people who I want in my life, who I want the support from and who I want to support, Tim was one of them. And so I was able to, kind of to process that. But again, that was a year and I hope it doesn't take that long. And so one of the things, that he said that I just wanted to make sure that if you are in that situation, try not to let as much time pass. Now, granted, I do think sometimes space helps. And for me and Tim, unfortunately, because we both were like really stubborn about it, like we let a year pass, but 2020 was crazy. Who knows what could happen? I had COVID. Like, you know what I mean? Like people weren't out here surviving from COVID. So what happens if I didn't survive from COVID? Right. And now like something were to happen and I don't know like what Tim would have felt. Right. And same thing with me. Like if something would have happened to him, like how would I have felt knowing that this petty argument, now I've lost a friend, not only like, like in a literal, but like literally, like I've lost a friend, right? And so like if you are in that situation and you feel like you need some space, try not to let as much time pass because again, life is just too short You just don't, you just never know. You really just never know. And like I said, also the thing that I learned is when you're in a situation where you are going through a friend breakup, to really do an internal audit of self. Whether you're in the situation, whether you're right after the situation, whether it's a year later, to really understand, what is it that I've learned from this situation? Is there anything that I could do or could have done better that didn't lead to this situation at all? Or is there something that I can do at this moment to maybe work through the situation? What have I done to work through it and to make sure it doesn't happen in the future? And that's what I had to do. Like I said, it was an internal audit of self to say, you know what, Loryn, like you've gone through therapy. You've understood what boundaries are. You've really taken the time to learn what grief was. You've really understood that this is a person who you want in your life. Like, these are things that you've done that you can now go to him and say, you know what, like, hey, I've done the work and I'm willing to continue to do the work, but I want you in my life while I'm doing the work. And he was able to see that and acknowledge that and accept that. And that's why we were able to move forward from it. Because he was like, hey, I'm willing to do the work and stand in here with you. And let's make sure that, you know, it doesn't happen again. And I will, you know, take the time to make sure I'm not being insensitive in the moment. And I will take the time, you know, Loryn, I will take the time to never speak to you like that again. And we were able to move forward from that. And so I think it's just really important, again, like to just really understand that when these things happen, they do matter. And there is a lot of weight behind them. And having a friend breakup is really hard and really lonely. Like I said, I missed him. I really missed him for a whole year. But, you know, I'm not gonna, you know, would not let me call him until the fact that I had to, you know, really work through therapy and say, you know what, like, this is silly. Like, this is crazy. And you may not have to go to therapy for that. For me, I had to. But, you know, I hope this helps. And if you are going through that or will go through that, how to work through that, because friendships are important, you know. That's why I said I feel like people don't put enough weight on when you have a breakup with a friend as much as you have like a breakup in a romantic relationship. Like, they're important. Friendships are the foundation, you know, sometimes of who you are, you know, besides like God, higher power, you know, family, friend, like, it's important. And if you don't have those solid friendships, or if you have a solid friendship and you lose it, it can feel like almost a death in itself. And, you know, I know people are probably gonna be like, the controversy, but honestly, like, it can feel that way. And so, because you have to think, like, at that time, like, I had lost my dad, I had lost another friend right before that, and then I had lost him. So, like, I had like 3 deaths, like, back to back to back, essentially, in my life. That's how it felt. And I didn't want to feel like that anymore. I just didn't want to feel that way. And so I knew that it was something that I had to work through. And it was a relationship that mattered in my life and that I wanted. And I wanted to heal from it. And I was hoping that he wanted the same thing. And he did. And so here we are. We're able to talk to you. But as I always say, you know, as you are going through and trying to work through the process, whether it's yourself or with that particular friend that you're trying to reconcile with, as I always say, be kind to yourself and give yourself grace, because if you don't, who will? That is it, you guys. Oh my God. End of season 2. We are 2 seasons in the book. Your girl is going to take some much needed rest, okay? Because your girl is tired out here in these streets, in these moving streets. But thank you guys so much for rocking with me. 2 seasons. We 20 episodes in. It's mind-boggling to me. It's absolutely crazy. It's crazy, crazy, crazy. But I love you guys so much for just continuing to rock with me and join me on this journey. Like, when I tell you I'm so excited for what's coming, like, it's so much stuff. So if you are not following me on social media, please follow me right now. Pull out your phones. Follow me right now on Instagram at TTSS Pod. I'm actually in the midst of creating a Facebook page group. I don't really know how it goes, but I am doing that as well. So on the next season, y'all will see where to follow me on Facebook as well. YouTube game is getting popping. Like, I'm just super excited, but make sure you are following me, because during my break, I'm actually going to be dropping some bonus content, some bonus episodes, some rewinds for you, and I'm doing a giveaway, and y'all gonna be really hype about this giveaway. Like, my first giveaway was cool, but like this one, I think y'all are really, really, really gonna like, because I'm actually collabing with someone on this giveaway. So I'm super, super excited about that. So I am just so thankful and grateful for you guys always rocking with me. I think we're in 10, 11 countries now. Hey guys, I'm gonna learn how to say hi in every language that I am in, that my podcast is in. I promise you, on season 3, watch. I'm gonna come out here and say all of the ways to say hi in all of the languages of all the countries that I'm in. So I am super, super hyped. I'm gonna be changing some things around. We're gonna be doing a little bit of rebranding, so stay tuned for that. So definitely make sure you're plugged in with me on social media so we can talk about that. But that's it, you guys. I'm so super excited. I just love y'all, man. And thank you so much for listening to the final episode of season 2 of This Too Shall Suck podcast. Again, make sure you're plugged in with me on social media at TTSS Pod so you can stay contacted and connected for that giveaway, for all the bonus episodes, so you can see what's going on. If you are listening on Apple Podcasts, don't forget to rate, review, and follow. Make sure you also share it with your family and friends. If you want to know more about me, you can check out my website at this2shallsuckpodcast.com, and feel free to send me any questions or any topics you want to hear at hello@this2shallsuckpodcast.com. This episode was produced by Mike Sick, and our original music is produced by Jimmy Samaj. As always, I love you guys, and I'm sending you love and light in your life because you deserve it. I'll see you guys in a bonus episode soon, and I'll see you all on the next season and on social media. Mwah.